Manly Hall Official is glad to produce, publish and offer. Anthropogenesis. Stanzas from the Book of Dzyan. Stanza 1. The law which turns the fourth is subservient to the law of the seven, they who revolve driving their chariots around their Lord, the One Eye. His breath gave life to the seven, it gave life to the first. The great spiritual being, La, who rules our globe, the fourth, is a servant to the Lord of the seven. These seven drive the chariots of the planets around the shining eye of the sun, who is symbolical of the spiritual body of the Logos. The rays of the sun give life to the seven planets, and from the sun came the life which animated the first globe of our world chain. If you're enjoying this video and finding value in the content, we kindly ask you to take a moment to subscribe to the channel. A large portion of our listeners and viewers haven't subscribed yet, and by doing so, you'll help us grow and continue bringing you more high-quality audiobooks. Your support means a lot to us, and it's just one click away. So, go ahead and hit that subscribe button to stay connected and never miss out on our latest releases. Said the earth, Lord of the shining face, my house is empty. Send thy sons to people this wheel. Thou hast sent thy 7 sons to the Lord of wisdom. 7 times doth he see thee nearer to himself, 7 times more doth he feel thee. Thou hast forbidden thy servants, the small rings, to catch thy light and heat, the great bounty to intercept on its passage. Send now to thy servant the same. The Lord of the earth said to the sun that his house was empty, he asked that spirits might be sent to his will as they had been sent to the others. He said that the sun had sent his 7 children to the sphere of Mercury, and he felt that some should come to him. Said the Lord of the shining face, I shall send thee a fire when thy work is commenced. Raise thy voice to other lokas, apply to thy father, the Lord of the lotus, for his sons. Thy people shall be under the rule of the fathers. Thy men shall be mortals. The men of the Lord of wisdom, not the lunar sons, are immortal. Cease thy complaints. Thy 7 skins are yet on thee. Thou art not ready. Thy men are not ready. The Lord of the sun answered him, saying, I will send thee life when thou art ready for it, cease thy complaints, for the Lord of the lotus, the moon, shall send you sons. Thy sons shall be under the rule of the old ones, the lords of the moon. Cease thy complaining, thy 7 worlds have not yet been formed, thou art not ready to receive life. After great throes she cast off her old 3 and put on her new 7 skins, and stood in her first one. After passing through many strange cataclysms the planet prepared itself for the coming of life. The 7 globes of her first chain were ready. Stanza 2. The wheel whirled for 30 crores more. It constructed rupas, soft stones that hardened, hard plants that softened. Visible from invisible, insects and small lives. She shook them off her back whenever they overran the mother. After 30 crores she turned round. She lay on her back, on her side. She would call no sons of heaven, she would ask no sons of wisdom. She created from her own bosom. She evolved watermen, terrible and bad. The planet therefore continued in its endless course for many millions of years. It began to build bodies. The gases gathered and gradually the mineral kingdom became ever more crystallized and the etheric stones became dense chemical rock. Therefore it is said there were soft stones that hardened. The hard plants that softened began as moss and semi-crystal things. As they evolved through the eternities the life within them evolved, they softened, and from an almost mineral condition they evolved their present supple bodies. Whenever the earth became overrun with any of these groups, great cataclysms destroyed them all. During the ages the inclination of the polar axle changed many times, and as its angle is the key to the lives that evolve upon the planet the lives changed with each new position of the axle. As in the story of the Scandinavian creation, the earth began to form creatures out of itself, but they were soulless for the spirits of heaven had not entered into them. The watermen terrible and bad she herself created from the remains of others, from the dross and slime of her first, second, and third, she formed them. The Dhyani came and looked, the Dhyani from the bright father-mother, from the white regions they came, from the abodes of the immortal mortals. The earth became overrun with these creatures. The substances they were created from were the remains of the previous rounds or periods. They were strange, gaunt, misshapen creatures, supposedly covered with scales like fishes. A host of great creatures came from the Father, which is the Sun, and the Moon, which is the Mother. From the superior worlds they came and gazed upon the works of the earth. Displeased they were. Our flesh is not there. No fit rupas for our brothers of the fifth. No dwellings for the lives. Pure waters, not turbid, they must drink. Let us dry them. These spirits were displeased, for they found no bodies there for the spirits that were to come in, so they decided to destroy them all. The flames came. The fires with the sparks, the night fires and the day fires. They dried out the turbid dark waters. With their heat they quenched them. The loss of the high, the Lamayan of below, came. They slew the forms which were 2 and 4-faced. They fought the goat men, and the dog-headed men, and the men with fishes' bodies. A great host of spiritual beings, called the flames, the servants of the sun and the servants of the moon, came down like a cloud upon the earth. They destroyed the false creatures and cleansed the earth very similarly to the story related in the flood of Noah. Mother Water, the great sea, wept. She arose, she disappeared in the moon which had lifted her, which had given her birth. The half-ether, half-water, which is called the Mother Waters, rose as a great cloud from the earth unto the moon, which had given her birth. When they were destroyed, Mother Earth remained here. She asked to be dried. When all of these things had passed away, the earth remained a void. She asked to be crystallized into a more solid and compact mass, in order that she might be the home of true living things and not false creatures of the mist. Stanza 3. The Lord of the Lords came. From her body he separated the waters, and that was heaven above, the first heaven. The region appointed by the solar god, who is here called the Lord of Lords, now descended from the sun unto the planet. He molded the body of the earth, he divided the above from the below, creating the heavens and the earth as we know them now. Your nature. Give them their forms within. She will build coverings without. Males females will they be. Lords of the flame also. Plans were then made to bring forth nobler creatures in the image of the gods themselves. The great lights were to form the spiritual centers of these bodies, and the Mother Nature was to build coverings that these lives might manifest in substance. By this means were to be developed creatures who were to be great as the gods themselves, because the gods dwelt within them and were the source of their life. They went each on his allotted land, 7 of them each on his lot. The lords of the flame remained behind. They would not go, they would not create. So each of the great group of lords went into that type of bodies which had been prepared for him, all except the lords of the flame. They would not go in, they rebelled against the law that had built the bodies for them. Stanza 4. The 7 hosts, the will-born lords, propelled by the spirit of life-giving, separate men from themselves, each on his own zone. The 7 hosts then gathered groups of the embryonic men together, differentiating them one group from another, placing each in his own zone. They accomplished this with the assistance of Fohat, who acted as messenger and vitalizer. 7 times 7 shadows of future men were born, each of his own color and kind. Each inferior to his father. The fathers, the boneless, could give no life to beings with bones. Their progeny were Buddha, with neither form nor mind. Therefore they are called the Chaya. Many times the lords tried to build a body, but being themselves without experience in physical substance they could only build shadows, for they who were without bones could not build bones, and they who were without minds could not build minds. Therefore the race they gave birth to was a race of shadowy images lacking many things which were necessary to their human manifestation. How are the minutiae born? The Manus with minds, how are they made? The fathers called to their help their own fire, which is the fire that burns in earth. The spirit of the earth called to his help the solar fire. These three produced in their joint efforts a good rupa. It could stand, walk, run, recline, or fly. Yet it was still but a chaya, a shadow with no sense. The question is asked how the creatures with minds were born. In order to accomplish this, the lords who were building them and who had come over from the moon called the planetary fire, somewhat similar to electricity, to their assistance. They also called to the sun and asked him to lend his immortal light to become the consciousness of things. As a result of this, through the cooperation of all these elements, the archetype of man was made. The process took hundreds of millions of years. All this occurred before man or the planet itself had actually been differentiated from the sun. While its center had been established in space, it was still enveloped by the radiance of the Great Father. The breath needed a form, the fathers gave it. The breath needed a gross body, the earth molded it. The breath needed the spirit of life, the solar loss breathed it into its form. The breath needed a mirror of its body, we gave it our own, said the Dhyanis. The breath needed a vehicle of desires, it has it, said the drainer of waters. But breath needs a mind to embrace the universe, we cannot give that, said the fathers. I never had it, said the spirit of the earth. The form would be consumed were I to give it mine, said the great fire. Man remained an empty senseless Buddha. Thus have the boneless given life to those who became men with bones in the third. The human spark, called the breath, needed a form, so the lords of the moon gave it an etheric double. It needed a physical body, so the earth molded it into the etheric double. The germ needed a life spirit, so the solar angels gave it to it. The germ needed an astral body, and a vehicle of desires, so the lords of the astral world and the drainer of waters, who is the spirit of passion, supplied one. All that man now needed was a mind, but the lords of the moon had none, the spirit of the earth had none. The great mind said, mine is so great that if man should have it it would destroy him. So even in the third race, or the early Lemurian world, man wandered mindless over the prehistoric planet. Stanza 5. The first were the sons of Yoga. Their sons the children of the yellow father and the white mother. It is said that the first race were the self-born, while the second were the fruitage of a union between the spirits of the sun and the spirits of the moon. They have vanished forever from the surface of nature. Only the Akashic records remember them. The second race was the product by budding and expansion, the asexual from the sexless. Thus was, O Lanu, the second race produced. The second race, still dwelling in the spirit of the sun, was globular in shape. It reproduced itself by budding and expanding and by a process of fission. It existed for many ages and was known as the Hypoborean species. In this species the first principles of sex were manifesting, although the invisible form was sexless. Their fathers were the self-born. The self-born, the chaya from the brilliant bodies of the lords, the fathers, the sons of twilight. They were the children of the self-born. They were shadows from the brilliant bodies of the lords their fathers being the pitris, which issued from the dark body of Brahma. When the race became old, the old waters mixed with the fresher waters. When its drops became turbid, they vanished and disappeared in the new stream, in the hot stream of life. The outer of the first became the inner of the second. The old wing became the new shadow, and the shadow of the wing. The first race outlived the period of its usefulness. The labor it had come to do was accomplished, and gradually it was absorbed into the second. The dark airborne became the flaming lightborne. The subtle bodies which had been the exterior vehicles of the first race withdrew into the organism, and their places were taken by newer and denser vehicles. Thus the external spiritual bodies of the first became the internal spiritual bodies of the second, and so on. Stanza 6. Then the second evolved the egg-born, the third. The sweat grew, its drops grew, and the drops became hard and round. The sun warmed it, the moon cooled and shaped it, the wind fed it until its ripeness. The white swan from the starry vault overshadowed the big drop. The egg of the future race, the man swan of the later third. First male-female, then man and woman. From the second was evolved the third race, the early Lemurian, part of which was capable of reproducing itself by fission, while another part came forth from eggs and were able to run and walk from the moment of birth. During this period the race actually assumed its present form. Also during this period the sexes were divided. The self-born were the chayas, the shadows from the bodies of the sons of twilight. The earlier races could not be destroyed, because their bodies were composed of superphysical elements. They were absorbed from one race into another, and at certain periods great cataclysms, caused by the gods, annihilated them, but the Lemurian race, having built true physical bodies, were capable of being destroyed. Stanza 7. The sons of wisdom, the sons of night, ready for rebirth, came down. They saw the vile forms of the first third. We can choose, said the lords, we have wisdom. Some entered the chaya. Some projected the spark. Some deferred till the fourth. From their own rupa they filled the kama. Those who entered became arhats. Those who received but a spark remained destitute of knowledge. The spark burned low. The third remained mindless. Their jivas were not ready. These were set apart among the seven. They became narrow-headed. The third were ready. In these shall we dwell, said the lords of the flame. At this time the great spiritual lights again viewed the sons of men. They said, we can choose whether we shall enter these forms or not. Some entered and became the great and wise arhats. Others said, we will wait until the fourth race. The seven dark lords chose their bodies, descending as they saw fit. You and I are more than merely forms. Our consciousness is really part of these great groups of celestial beings who, at different periods in the history of man, descended into the vessels of clay prepared for their coming. How did the Manasa, the sons of wisdom, act? They rejected the self-born. They are not ready. They spurn the sweat-born. They are not quite ready. They would not enter the first egg-born. The fruitage of the first planetary chain had waited long for bodies. They rejected the self-born as being unfit. They also turned away from the sweat-born. Nor would they enter into the earlier egg-born. When the sweat-born produced the egg-born, the twofold and the mighty, the powerful with bones, the lords of wisdom said, now shall we create. When, however, the third race had assumed its human shape and had become of upright stature, the lords said, now we shall enter in. The third race became the Vahan of the lords of wisdom. It created sons of will and yoga. By Kriya Sakti it created them, the holy fathers, ancestors of the arhats. Therefore the third race furnished bodies to the lords of wisdom. The lords of wisdom, speaking through the third race, made it a great people, for they gave it wisdom, this wisdom being the knowledge of good and evil. Stanza 8. From the drops of sweat, from the residue of the substance, matter from dead bodies of men and animals of the wheel before, and from cast-off dust, the first animals were produced. The animal wave of life began in the second round, where it assumed the material discarded by the men of the first round. From this it produced its bodies, which were then composed also of astral substance. Animals with bones, dragons of the deep, and flying sarpa were added to the creeping things. They that creep on the ground got wings. They of the long necks in the water became the progenitors of the fowls of the air. As man was a fantastic creature during his early stages of growth, so during the early development of the animal's form ran riot. Great creatures existed. These were well known to science, but were absolutely unrecognized by any except initiates at the time when these sacred stanzas were written. During the third race, the boneless animals grew and changed. They became animals with bones, their chayas became solid. During the third round, the animals changed. They became creatures with bones. Forms had they, and their shadows became solid. These shadows were molded according to the fantastic pattern of the superphysical worlds. Therefore the dinosaur and other strange prehistoric creatures owe their shape to the invisible worlds which patterned it. The animals separated the first. They began to breed. The twofold man separated also. He said, "Let us as they, let us unite and make creatures." They did. The animals began to breathe and to reproduce their species, and men did likewise during the third period. And those which had no spark took huge she-animals unto them. They begot upon them dumb races. Dumb they were themselves, but their tongues untied. The tongues of their progeny remained still. Monsters they bred. A race of crooked red hair-covered monsters going on all fours. A dumb race to keep the shame untold. From the invisible records of nature we have the story of the interbreeding of men and beasts which produced great races of unintelligent giants, but like all hybrid creatures they did not continue and history bears no record of them. It is possible that certain forms of apes bear some record of this condition. Stanza 9. Seeing which, the Los who had not built men, wept, saying, when the divine hierarchs who had not descended into the world or become ensouled in the bodies of men beheld this chaos upon the earth, they were very unhappy, for it was not according to the plan. The Amanasa have defiled our future abodes. This is karma. Let us dwell in the others. Let us teach them better, lest worse should happen. They did. They said, these creatures without minds have defiled our future dwelling places. Let us not dwell in them, let us dwell in others. Let us instruct them concerning their great sin, lest worse shall happen. Then all men became endowed with manas. They saw the sin of the mindless. Then the race received minds and beheld the sin of the mindless and realized what a great sin had been committed. The fourth race developed speech. The fourth race was the first one to use true speech. Before that time they copied the sounds of nature, making known their feelings and desires by imitating the voice of the storms, the rustle of the wind through the trees, and other natural noises. Man developed the larynx after the division of the sexes, for as all scientists know there is a direct connection between the throat and the generative system. The one became two, also all the living and creeping things that were still one, giant fishbirds and serpents with shell heads. Even after the sexes had been divided, there were still certain forms of life which remained androgynous. Stanza 10. Thus 2 by 2 on the 7 zones, the third race gave birth to the fourth race men. The gods became no gods, the Sura became Asura. The 7 zones are the areas of the Earth's surface which have been set aside for the development of the 7 races. The third race gave birth to the fourth, the Atlantean. The first, on every zone, was moon-colored, the second yellow like gold, the third red, the fourth brown, which became black with sin. The first 7 human shoots were all of one complexion. The next 7 began mixing. The colors of the races are explained in this verse. It is the combining of these colors which is the base of all the differences existing in the world today. Of course, the first and second races have entirely vanished. Then the fourth became tall with pride. We are the kings, it was said, we are the gods. The Lemurian and Atlantean races were of great size. They are the giants who walked upon the earth. From them has come most of the legends concerning the gods who walked upon the earth. They took wives fair to look upon. Wives from the mindless, the narrow-headed. They bred monsters. Wicked demons, male and female, also Kato, Dakini, with little minds. The Atlanteans took wives from among the Lemurians, and also from some of the races of the mindless. The result was monsters, wicked creatures of all kinds and beings of little intelligence. Some races still exist in the world today that are unions of Atlantean and Lemurian stock. They are the very lowest form of savages. They built temples for the human body. Male and female they worshipped. Then the third eye acted no longer. They are the ones, the Atlanteans, who began the process of building temples after the pattern of the human body. It is also during their day that phallic worship was supreme. When the extreme materiality began to be felt and man-built senses connected him with the objective worlds, he gradually lost contact with his invisible progenitors. Therefore it is said the third eye closed. Stanza 11. They built huge cities. Of rare earths and metals they built, and out of the fires vomited, out of the white stone of the mountains and of the black stone, they cut their own images in their size and likeness, and worshipped them. The late Lemurians built great cities, and also began the process of tempering metals. They also began to cut images of heroes and gods and worshipped them. Here and there even to this day are to be seen relics of the Lemurian days. Many of these creatures reached a height of 100 feet, but as the intelligence increased the bodies grew smaller. A concrete example of that can be seen in the animals. Today they are small, but they are all descendants of gigantic creatures. They built great images 9 yardis high, the size of their bodies. Inner fires had destroyed the land of their fathers. The water threatened the fourth. A yardis is a measurement said to correspond to our yard. The Lemurian world was destroyed largely by volcanic eruptions, and now, because of their degeneracy and crystallization, the Atlantean world was threatened by water. The first great waters came. They swallowed the 7 great islands. The floods that destroyed the great Atlantean world are here described. They destroyed the 7 sacred centers, around which the Atlantean world was built. The last to go was a great island in the Atlantic Ocean, which in sinking carried with it 60 million people. All holy saved, the unholy destroyed. With them most of the huge animals, produced from the sweat of the earth. That which was good was led out of Atlantis, while that which was unholy was destroyed. The sacred wisdom was carried into Egypt and into India. The sinking of Atlantis is the origin of the story of the flood. At this time most of the prehistoric animals that had survived the Lemurian cataclysms vanished from the face of the earth. The ancient wisdom, with its priests, was spared, but the Atlantean Empire, which had become wicked beyond all hope, was practically destroyed. Stanza 12. Few men remained, some yellow, some brown and black, and some red remained. The moon-colored were gone forever. The race was not entirely destroyed, however. Some of the yellow, some of the brown, some of the black, and some of the red remained. The very early races, however, entirely vanished. The fifth produced from the holy stock remained. It was ruled over by the first divine kings. A special group of people, what the Jews called the chosen people, were separated from the Atlantean stock to form the nucleus of the fifth root race. These were led out of Atlantis before its destruction, and, passing over to central India, are the progenitors of all the white races. They were ruled over by the first divine kings, great spiritual beings who assisted them in their struggles for existence. Who redescended, who made peace with the fifth, who taught and instructed it. These are the serpents, divine kings, who redescend from the heavens to make ready the bodies of another great race of creatures who incarnated into our people. These were largely the initiates, serpents, who had been developed by the previous races, and are the demigods of mythology. Such is the history of the universe. Copyright 2025 by Manly Hall Official. Thank you for listening. Please consider to subscribe, like, and share to help the channel growth. New videos on a daily basis.